everyone. Oh, it's very loud. Thank you for coming tonight. We're going to get started with the presentation in a few moments, so if you can take a seat at the tables, starting with the ones that are closer to the front, if you don't mind. And we can have 4 to 6 people per table, probably.
USA soccer game.
So the mayor's here and who else is here?
I don't see any other council members. Just Jamie. I don't see.
I'm just going to say one more thing.
All right, go ahead.
And I just want to remind the GPAC members to sit one at each table, if you wouldn't mind for us. We'd appreciate you distributing. Thank you.
All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. This is kind of exciting. It's our first workshop for the update of the general plan local coastal program, as well as the downtown and waterfront strategic planning process, which is sort of an offshoot of that effort. Hopefully we're going to get some good input this evening. Or the update of the general plan and local coastal program has been a long time coming. Usually this document has about a 20-year horizon, and ours is almost 30 years old, so it's time. I think with that, we'd like to introduce to you some of the folks that are associated with that. So we have our Michael Baker team, some city staff members, and then the GPAC. If you guys could all stand up. And we have, I think, one elected official, the mayor. If you mind standing up, I'm going to have you guys all introduce yourselves. Starting with me, I suppose. My name is Scott Graham. I'm the community development manager for the city. It's my job to sort of shepherd this project through the process. I think if we want to go go this way, yeah. All right.
My name's Chris. Oh, should I talk to Mike?
We could. Yeah, I don't know.
My name's Chris Reed. I'm with Michael Baker International, one of the contractors working on this project, and I'm the assistant project manager.
Great. My name's Laurel Apple. I'm Michael Baker International, and I am leading the downtown waterfront strategic plan effort.
Hi, I'm Tammy Seal with Untitled Chapter International as well, and I'm one of the project directors. I'm Joe Gargiulo, I'm an assistant planner with the city of Norway.
I'm Jen Holden. I'm on the GPAC committee. I'm Amy Sinsheimer, and I am also with Michael Baker.
I'm Bob Taft. I'm on the GPAC committee and for some reason chairman.
And hi everyone, I'm Cindy Jason, and I'm an associate planner for the city.
I am Glenn Silway. I'm on the GPAC.
Hi, Jamie Irons, Mayor. Super excited that we're starting this process and everybody's here.
I'm Wendy McElvain. I'm a contract planner for the city. Okay, well, Susan Schneider. I'm on the GPAC. Susan Stewart. I'm on the GPAC.
Jeff Heller on the GPAC.
Do you have the clicker? All right, thank you, everyone. So my name is Christelle Blackford. I'm on the consultant team with Michael Baker International, and I'm going to be facilitating the night, running us through the agenda and the activities and keeping us on time. So we're here tonight to share information with you about Plan Morro Bay, and perhaps even more importantly, we're here to collect input from you and hear your feedback. So we're going to share some input through a short presentation that we'll do shortly, and then we're going to go into some small group activities. In terms of collecting feedback, we had some boards around the room. We had 2 visioning boards and a coastal resiliency board, and we hope that you had a chance to review those and add feedback and comments. If you haven't had a chance yet, you can do that at the end of the night before you leave. And then finally, for the small group activities, we're going to be wanting to hear from you about what you love about your city and your downtown and waterfront areas, and what you see as some opportunities and some growth areas that we can work from. At the very end of this meeting, we're going to be doing a public comment period. This is formally a special meeting of the GPAC, as there's a quorum of GPAC members here. And so our chair, Dr. Teft, will lead a formal public comment period at the end. At the end of the short presentation we're about to give you, however, we will have a question and answer period. So if you have any questions about the presentation content, about Plan Morro Bay, we'll welcome your questions at that time. So now I'm going to hand it over to Chris Reed, who's going to tell you about Plan Morro Bay.
All right, so let me just start by asking, how many people know what a general plan is? Can you just raise your hand? All right, so a lot of people, but not everybody. So I just want to start by using a metaphor to describe what we're doing here. We're doing a long-term strategic plan for the city. And a good metaphor is to think of a long-term financial plan. So, we have something that we want to achieve 30 years from now. And to do that, we're going to set some financial goals and then create a strategy to achieve those goals. So the difference between that and what a general plan is that in the context of local planning, this is a long-range plan for development and conservation. And in this case, it's through the year 2040. And instead of looking at issues related to personal finance and things like that, we're looking at a much broader range of issues, including land use. So where do we want residential land uses, commercial land uses, coastal dependent land uses to be in the year 2040? Issues related to circulation. How do we want people, goods, services, cars, bicycles to move through the city in the year 2040? We're looking at issues related to conservation and open space. So how do we want our natural resources to function through the year 2040 and beyond? Issues related to public safety. So how can we achieve our goals despite the fact that we might have earthquakes or sea level rise or other natural hazards? Issues related to noise. If we make decisions about land use and circulation now, is that going to affect some noise pollution issues in our city? And finally, how do we maintain all the great coastal resources we have here and make sure that the coast is a place that people can access? Now, we're doing this because strategic long-term planning is a good idea. It helps us achieve our goals. But also because there are state laws that are very specific about these issues. So those topics I just mentioned are codified in California law as it relates to general plans, as well as in the California Coastal Act. So in doing these planning efforts, we're meeting our legal obligations under California law. So Plan Morro Bay consists of a general plan and then a local coastal program. And both of these things, again, are long-term visions for the future. And we're really just going to call them Plan Morro Bay because they're basically going to be the same document. And what that document, one of the things it does is it establishes a vision for the future. So we can't work towards a goal in 2040 if we don't agree or have a good sense of what that goal is. And so the board back there identifies values and visions that have been drafted so far in the process. And that will really be the guiding hand as we move through this process. And we achieve those visions and values through goals, policies, actions, and programs. Goals, again, are those things we want to be able to say in 2040. In 2040, do we want to say this about Morro Bay? Do we want to say that about Morro Bay? Policies are those statements that the city will follow when faced with challenging questions. So do we want to develop in this parcel? Well, let's go back to the general plan and see what we all said about that 5 years ago, 6 years ago when we got together as a community. And then actions and programs are those steps, those things that we want to intentionally do as a city to actively achieve those goals. Once we're done with having that general plan, that strategic plan to achieve those goals, that'll be implemented through the zoning code. So those of you that interact with the zoning code know that it's also in places old and in some places potentially challenging to use. So we'll be doing a comprehensive zoning update, code update as a result through this project. And also through various strategic and action plans. So Those of you that come to city meetings know that there's a lot of projects going on in the city right now that deal with planning for the future. The general plan provides a large umbrella under which we, again, set goals and achieve them. Action plans, such as the Downtown and Waterfront Strategic Plan, which we'll be talking about more tonight, are much shorter term, much more focused ways of achieving those goals. And the general plan process, the Plan Morro Bay process, will be informed by other city planning projects. So the outcome of the water reclamation facility process will affect our goals and how we achieve them. Similarly, the outcome of ongoing strategic plans or visioning processes, such as the Embarcadero widening and Centennial Staircase plan, our planning process will need to incorporate that and make sure that it's all consistent. So whereas the general plan and local coastal program might be that long-term financial plan that we have in the metaphor, the Downtown and Waterfront Strategic Plan might be, in your personal life, might be a budget for the next year or your spending plan for a single part of your life. This is just a much more focused, both in time and space, planning effort. And we're undertaking it at the same time because there's some real strategic benefits to doing a long-term comprehensive plan and then also a more focused plan. So the Downtown and Waterfront Strategic Plan is looking at a unified vision for the downtown and the waterfront. Ways of identifying physical connections between those two spaces, identifying the appropriate land uses in those spaces, identifying specific public space and street improvements, and then also developing a unified brand and set of design guidelines so that when you're in the downtown and waterfront, you have a really specific sense of place. So this is a not-to-scale timeline of the projects as they're happening right now. So this just illustrates everything that we're doing. So under the Plan Morro Bay umbrella, it includes the general plan and local coastal program, as well as the Downtown Waterfront Strategic Plan. And this just shows how, so the city's also doing an economic development plan right now, and the outcome of that will feed into our work, as well as, again, the Embarcadero widening and Centennial Staircase vision. The outcome of that will also feed into our work. This is just a timeline of how we're going to get to the draft general plan. We are somewhere either in front of or behind the very first dot right now. So right now we're conducting wide-ranging research on all the existing conditions in the city. So everything ranging from the things you're seeing on these poster boards to what kind of natural hazards affect the city, to what kind of natural resources are in the city, the different land uses in the city, how the economy currently functions in the city. We're looking at all of that right now. And some of the issues we'll talk about later come out of that research. We'll move forward from that to key issues and policies, probably in midsummer. Then as we move into the fall, we'll start to look at opportunity areas in the city, look at some land use alternatives discussions. So how do we want to potentially change the land use in our city? And then as we move into the end of the year, we'll be drafting the Downtown Waterfront Strategic Plan as well as the general plan. So that's just a really quick overview of what a general plan, what a LCP is, and more specifically what Plan Morro Bay is. I think there's longer ways to talk about that. And in fact, we have at some of the previous GPAC meetings, and those are all available on the city's YouTube website. So if you want the non-Cliff Notes version of that, feel free to visit that. So I'm going to hand the microphone back to Christelle, who's going to talk about some of the outreach that we've done so far.
All right, thank you, Chris. So to think about that timeline, you might be wondering when will I have an opportunity to weigh in. So we have already done some outreach to date and before this meeting, and we'll be continuing to interface hopefully with all of you and the larger community as we move forward. So you saw that we have a vision statement and values statement at the back of the room. And hopefully you had a chance to review it, and please do so before you leave if you haven't. So the way that this was developed was based on a telephone survey that was coupled with a website where you could go and see and listen to actually people's submissions. So you might have participated in this telephone survey in late 2015. And we took all of that input, and together with input that we received through a series of meetings with City Council, Planning Commission, and the General Plan Advisory Committee, which we're all calling the GPAC for short, in case that hadn't become clear yet, was used to create this vision statement and the values. And this is an important guiding document that will ensure that the technical work is really in line with what all of you imagine and want to see for the future of your city. So in addition to that, we have the General Plan Advisory Committee ongoing meetings. And the role of the General Plan Advisory Committee is really to have a focused community oversight of document review. And so the General Plan Advisory Committee members were appointed by City Council after an application process. And they're doing really like the hard work of slothing through all of these documents and reviewing the long documents on behalf of the community, really. So what I want to do now is I want to take an opportunity to reintroduce Dr. Teft. And he's going to tell you about some of the outreach work that GPAC is doing. And I want to also just say that you're all invited to all General Plan Advisory Committee meetings, which happen monthly on the third Thursday of each month, usually here. And it's a public meeting, and you're always welcome to come and listen and provide comment. So I'll just invite Dr. Teft up now.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. They gave me 1 minute, so don't get nervous. I have to say, so far, up to this point, the City Voice survey has been probably the primary public input that has been informing the GPAC process. And I would like to say that I have actually listened to every single phone call in the City Voice survey. Following that, the GPAC has been reaching out primarily by email. The response to that has not been voluminous, but some of the responses that we've gotten have been very thoughtful and have been very useful and in great detail. And we've actually come up with some, or they've actually brought up some points that nobody else had thought of previously. What we would like to do going forward is to reach out to groups within the community and meet personally with each one of you. So I have sign-up forms on the table at the front for any of you who would like to have a member of the GPAC come to your group and meet with you and discuss this. Now, what we're currently still discussing is the vision and the values. Okay, so this is still sort of, broad topics, but we would love to meet with any of you that are interested. Please sign up, and we'll get in contact with you to arrange a convenient time. There's an outreach to stakeholders, but the GPAC considers every resident of Morro Bay to be a stakeholder. So don't be shy. If you're not a member of an organized group, you could be. We could be talking about the Elks or the Eagles or the FBI or whatever. But if you would like to just get a group of your neighbors together and meet with a representative of the GPAC, under where it says name of your organization, just put down neighborhood group, and we'll be happy to get together and meet with you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Teft. Okay, so we're going to move to take questions at this point, and then we're going to follow that with our small group activities. So before we take questions, I just wanted to take a minute to, remind everyone of our courteous ground rules for discussion. So raise your hand if you have a question. We'd love to hear your question. We'll take one question at a time. But do please keep your comments concise so that everyone has a chance to speak, of course, and listen to the perspectives of others with respect. This goes for when you're having your small group discussions too. Everyone has differing opinions, and that's wonderful. And we're here to hear everyone's opinions. And please turn off your cell phone ringers if you haven't already done so. So we're going to do Q&A now. We have a floating microphone that we'll walk around with. If you have a question about what Plan Morro Bay is, about any of these technical terms that we've covered, about anything related to the plan, we'll take those now. We're recording, so we'd like you to use the microphone.
I have a question about the local coastal plan, or whatever it's called nowadays. I've never read it, but is that a part of the general plan, or is it like an expanded bullet point, or do you have to do the general plan first before you do the local coastal plan? Which came first?
Thanks for the question. I think Chris is going to answer that one.
Yeah, so there are two different requirements under California law, broad-reaching requirements. So the first is general plan law. And a lot of you raised your hands when you said you were familiar with the general plan. So that's just, it looks at land use, circulation, things like that. California also has the California Coastal Act, which preserves coastal resources, coastal access and things like that. That act set aside something called the coastal zone. And if you look at the map, that's actually a good segue. See the yellow line that kind of snakes into the city and then back out? Everything but that little triangle that's east of the yellow line is in the coastal zone. So that means that the California Coastal Commission has permitting authority for what's called a coastal development permit. Now, the way to bring that authority back to local jurisdiction is to have a local coastal program that basically achieves the goals of the California Coastal Act. So they can be two separate documents. And what's great is since so much of this is the coastal zone, so much of the city is in the coastal zone, we talked with Coastal Commission about having a single plan so that if you want to want to do a project and you want to see what regulations apply to your property, it's all in one place. And Coastal Commission said that works. So it'll be Plan Morro Bay is the name of the plan. And for legal reasons, or that fulfills the legal requirements of general plan law and Coastal Act law. But we're calling it Plan Morro Bay.
Any additional questions? Yes, in the back.
Hi. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm curious, are you going to use the same planning areas from the 1988 general plan in this general plan?
Thank you for the question.
So as part of the background work that we're doing right now, the community baseline assessment, we looked at all the character areas in the city and looked at different parts of the city, but it's the existing general plan is old enough that it's largely, we'll look to it as a data source, but it's mostly a redo of it. So yeah, that's right.
Anyone else? Burning questions? Okay, great. We'll have more time at the end as well, and the team will stick around if you have questions you want to ask individually. So we're going to move on to our small group activities, which is really the meat of our evening, and we're hoping to get lots of input from you during these activities and have some fun interactive discussions. So it looks like we're pretty well distributed across the room. At each table, you'll have your facilitator, who you already were introduced to. But if you all just want to raise your hand again, there are a couple of people who came in late. So you have one facilitator at each table. If we have any tables that are particularly light on people, we could combine two tables. So at each table, you've got your small group facilitator, and you've also got one GPAC member. And we're really happy to have the GPAC here at each table, and because they're really here to listen to you and to help ask some clarifying questions, and also to record comments. So if we want to take a minute to reorganize, and then I'll continue. Seems like there's going to be some reorganization happening. You're so on time.
So on time. Good job, Marcel.
You too.
Oh no.
What?
The third empty water bottles. Which one is mine?
So if everyone can have a seat again once you found your new table, and then I'm just going to give a high-level explanation of the first activity before you dive in. Okay, great. Thank you. So for the first activity, we're going to be thinking, put your hat on, focus your mind on downtown and the waterfront. We're really just focused on downtown and the waterfront for this first activity. So the purpose of the activity is that we want to hear from you. What do you love about downtown and the waterfront? And what would you change? What do you see as some opportunities for growth and enhancement? So what you're going to do is you're going to all focus your attention on that large-scale map that you have at each one of your tables. And first you're going to have a facilitated discussion, and please look to your facilitator to walk you through this activity. There's some discussion questions that we want you to talk about. And then after that, you're going to actually be placing stickers on the map and writing down your comments. And I want to stress that if you have ideas, either if it's something that you love about downtown, an asset that you perceive, some resource that you really want to keep around, please write down not only what it is, but also what it is you love about it, or why you think it's important, why you think we should maintain or enhance it. And the same thing goes for opportunities. But also the GPAC members will be there recording your comments, and we just want you to have a good and productive conversation. And in about 20 minutes, we'll come back together, and the facilitator for each table is going to share a couple of highlights from your conversation. So with that, I'll let you all get started. All right, let's get ready to wrap up. You should have summarized a few themes, a couple of assets, and a couple of opportunities to share with the group. So, hello? Is this working? Okay, so what we're going to do now is go around to each of the tables and have one person, either the facilitator, GPAC member, whoever wants to do it, one of the participants. We want to share the 2 assets and 2 opportunities. We know you talked about a lot more than that tonight. But just for the sake of not staying here all night, we'll do about 1 minute per table and just say that sort of the 2 assets that you spent the most time talking about, or the themes that came out of your assets conversations, and 2 themes that came out of your opportunities conversations. So we can start at this table. Cindy or Robert? 2 themes of assets, so that the 2 things that you talked about most in terms of assets, and 2 things that you talked about most in terms of opportunities. High level.
Okay, well, in terms of, I'll start with Old Town. In terms of Old Town, I think, and correct me if I misrepresent the discussion, okay? I think we felt that the biggest assets of the downtown area is its eclectic nature, and the fact that it is composed of local, down-to-earth businesses. In terms of opportunities, we felt that there was an opportunity for growth there in terms of the fact that there's some vacant lots and some properties that are underdeveloped, but we felt it was very important not to change the eclectic character of the downtown in doing that. We also felt, in terms of, I guess, the second big theme, I really have to do 2. The idea was a better connectivity between downtown and the Embarcadero in terms of both traffic flow and the types of businesses that locate along Morro Bay Boulevard, Morro Bay Boulevard south of Main Street. And then we also felt that the downtown needed a nucleus, a mall, a park, or something that would serve as a town center. In terms of the Embarcadero, boy, we liked a lot of stuff. But I guess primarily, the two that we came up with earliest on is the nature as a working harbor, and I guess the architecture that goes along with that, and the availability of water activities and sailing. And I think that in terms of opportunities, we felt that it was important to preserve the maritime look and feel of the Embarcadero and avoid what we term cookie-cutter commercial style of building, the Avila Beach type building. No offense to anyone that lives in Avila Beach. And that we needed to be careful to pay attention to increasing or providing adequate facilities for boaters and people that were utilizing the bay, including adequate parking, and then again, connectivity between downtown and the Embarcadero. I don't know if that's 2, 3, or...
Thank you. We'll keep the next ones a little bit shorter. All right, here we go. Amy is next.
Okay. So for our group, the two locations that received the most asset votes were the Centennial Staircase and Chess Park area. And people liked the character of that area and the opportunities to do things and connect between the two areas there, downtown and Embarcadero. And then the other asset was the other asset was to have mixed use, or liked the mixed use in the downtown. Did I get that right? No. Oh, sorry. I wrote it down wrong. Excuse me. It's the area at Morro Bay Boulevard and Main, and the character of that area, and the shopping and so forth. And then for the opportunities, more mixed use in that same area, so Morro Bay and Boulevard and Main, and retail and other types of uses. And then the other opportunity was to possibly have a partial or full closure for pedestrians of Morro Bay Boulevard starting at Centennial Stairway. And we talked about various options. It could be for 2 blocks, it could be longer than that. And to also make sure that there were businesses that kind of helped that be an exciting place for pedestrians to go. And I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Who's reporting back from this station?
Well, in terms of locations, the 2 assets that we picked out were the Bay Theater. Everybody loves the Bay Theater, so we're very happy we have a theater in such a small town. And perhaps, and we talked a little about maybe increasing utilization of it. Maybe other groups could use it or something like that. But is this on? Oh, anyway, everybody likes the Bay Theater. The other one was the North Embarcadero area, and it's not necessarily right in here, but we talked about the walkway out to the Rock, that everybody really likes that. People would like to see that, in some ways maybe enhanced a little. I know we didn't get down to there yet, but basically everybody likes the idea that there is a pedestrian and bike and car access all the way out to the Rock. In terms of opportunities, the staircases, and we talked about actually all 3 staircases, not just the Centennial Staircase, but also the one right out here and the one further south over by the Embarcadero Inn, and the idea that maybe those could be modernized and maybe made handicapped accessible. There was a talk of a funicular, I think, at one point. But anyway, that those staircases could provide better access and connectivity between, down to the Embarcadero and back up into the downtown. And then in general, we talked a lot about sort of the whole traffic issue. And in fact, this group felt that it was important to provide for cars, to people to get to places with cars. There's a feeling that there's a lot of traffic in the Embarcadero area, that is people running around looking for parking places. And so if that was more clearly done, and maybe better the utilization of the trolley, so maybe a schedule so people knew if it goes every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes and it stops where it stops, that maybe that could be better publicized and better utilized, so that people could use the parking in different places more effectively. So.
Thank you so much, Susan. Right, Lorelei?
All right, I'm going to try and do it under a minute. We had a lot of ideas. The assets, people felt that the Rock is, of course, our most amazing asset, and the fact that you have a clear view of it and the surrounding area kind of provides that natural, open feel where you don't feel crowded and can enjoy the beauty of it. The other asset is there's a ton of them along the Embarcadero, the Harbor Walk, the Marina, the Chessboard, specific stores and restaurants. All of those amazing things are valued, and it's really about the character of the area. As far as opportunities, the empty lots at Morro Bay Boulevard on the Embarcadero, there's opportunities for parking. There's a ton of areas where we could also have better connections and actually better landscaping and just beautification in general that will help the connections, help you connect from one place to the other in a serene and beautiful environment. Boom, 25 seconds left.
Who's going to beat that? All right, who's up next? Susan, are you recording, or is there Whitney?
I'm going to do it? Okay. Quick summary. Assets. We mostly talked about the downtown area, so the historic buildings, the unique businesses, the visibility that you get to the ocean from there. And then the opportunities, some of what we discussed were things that could make those disparate kinds of buildings more connected. So whether there would just be simple beautification kinds of things like having lights in the tree canopies that are all consistent, even while all the architectural styles and ages of the buildings are different. What else do we have? Opportunities for mixed use. So there was some discussion of height restrictions perhaps going up so that you had retail on bottom floors, offices on second floors, and residences on third floors. I know that sounds scary, but it's a thought and probably could be done without horrific impacts. Is that it? There's lots more, but that
Good summary. All right, we're going to move over to this table, and who's reporting back at this table? All right, Scott.
All right, from an asset standpoint, we identified one of the things that the table liked the most is the number and types of restaurants that we have in the downtown area. Down along the harbor is the views out to the harbor and the rock, obviously, from not only down on the Embarcadero, but also up in the downtown and views out down the streets out to the harbor. And then last asset, so we were supposed to have two, we have three, were the recreational opportunities that are available in and around the harbor, so boating, kayaking, paddleboarding, things like that. The opportunities, one of the things that seemed to come up quite a bit was improvement of pedestrian amenities and pedestrian safety through intersections, access to sidewalks for connectivity throughout the downtown and down to the Embarcadero. Improvement of parking, maybe putting parking structures in towards maybe the fringes, like having parking nodes, and looking potentially at some one-way traffic pattern, circulation patterns, maybe in the downtown to improve circulation, and again, just overall improve the parking situation in the downtown. And I think that was it.
All right, thank you so much. Did we get everybody? I think so. Great. So we're going to transition to our second small group activity now. And this one we're going to take about 40 minutes or less, and it's a step-by-step process, so I'm just going to give you the high level. So now I want you to take your energy sort of out of the downtown and waterfront and zoom out and think about the city as a whole. We want to really understand now, what it is that we have in the city that are assets, citywide assets, and what there are as citywide opportunities. So for this exercise, what you're going to do is you're going to really spend the most of your time brainstorming and talking about around a set of themes. What are ways that we can kind of capitalize on our assets and opportunities? So the facilitator, once again, is going to walk you through this step by step, and I'm just going to tell you at a high level what's on the screen, what you're going to do. So at every table, you have a stack of cards. Your facilitator will hand them out, and each one of you will have a set of 9 playing cards. You're going to first take your time, read through each card as a table, maybe go around the table. Each person takes a turn reading one card. And the cards have a fact on them. Each card has one fact. There's one about jobs, there's one about transportation, there's one about parks, etc. And so after you read the cards, each one of you is going to choose the top 3 things that are priorities to you, what you think the city should be prioritizing most. And that's going to establish what you're going to talk about for the rest of the time at your table. So if the majority of you pick jobs, for example, but you're going to have a discussion about jobs. And so once you do that, then there's a set of discussion questions that your facilitator will lead you through. You're going to use your sticky notes to put forth ideas. And at the end, you're going to summarize your ideas similarly to what you just did into sort of general broad themes that we're then at the end going to have one of each of you from each of the tables, and it'd be wonderful if participants want to do it this time. Come up, put the large summary theme sticky note on this blue board over here, and just say quickly what it is that you talked about. So I'll let you start from there, and your facilitator will walk you through starting out by reading those cards. So if you've started on a second topic, I want to just say just do kind of a lightning round version of what you did the first time. We want to wrap up in about 5 minutes and share what we've discussed. If you don't have time to get through your full discussion for the second topic, that's okay. We'll just share what you do have to report back, but we want to make sure that we have time for public comment at the end. All right, so let's take just another 30 seconds or so to wrap up the conversation you're having now. And then we're going to share our couple of large Post-it notes with the room and then wrap up for the evening with our public comment period. All right, let's get ready to share back with the room what you've discussed. Your table ready? Report back. I was going to ask if your table wants to start. Okay, so we're going to have our first table share back. So I apologize for rushing people. I just don't want to keep you all too late. So I know you could keep talking and you have so many more great ideas, but we're really looking forward to hearing what you did have a chance to discuss. So we're going to start here with Chris's table. if you can come to the blue sticky board and put it up roughly loosely correlated with the values that are at the top of the board, but it can be anywhere really.
All right, so we focused on the question of growth, and our two main themes were change Measure F and don't change Measure F. But really, really we focus for not changing the population limits. The focus is really on the fact that water limits our growth, and growing beyond that may not be wise, and that just because we grow in population, we may not have any direct economic benefit from that. The ideas behind growing beyond 12,200 were that if we use infill and water conservation, we may be able to achieve some economic and social goals, but consistent with having water and having the kind of community we want. I'll put those up in a second. And I don't have a sticky note yet, but on transportation, we really wanted to focus on intersection improvements, particularly at Main Street and Highway 41.
All right, which group is ready to go next? Does anybody want to report back for this table? So,
our group chose the three things that we thought to focus on were transportation, jobs, and retail. And in transportation, we spent all our time talking about mostly Highway 41 and Highway 1 and stuff. And we were thinking, we had some ideas. We thought maybe, we wondered about the Sonic restaurant if it goes in. Where are the entrances and exits going to be? Because there's also talk about a roundabout going there. How does that work into the roundabout? When you have a roundabout, then does that really improve the flow of traffic, or will that slow it down because you're going to have high school students crossing it? You're going to be stopping for kids crossing. You're going to be stopping for all the cars coming in and out, people going in and out of Sonic. So then we thought, well, maybe one thing we should just do is reconfigure the off-ramps and make Main Street be the off-ramp or the entrance and exit to Highway 41 instead of having a freeway off-ramp there. That would eliminate two streets right there. And maybe we could have another access to the high school. It could have something going over or under, or even some people suggested maybe somehow another street, building another street that somehow goes to the high school. These are just what we were throwing out. And because we were, and then the other thing that came up at Morro Bay Boulevard in Maine, maybe have a roundabout or a statue or something there to, if that becomes a pedestrian walkway down to the Centennial Parkway, so that we would have, just to mark that it's the beginning of the pedestrian walkway and get people, help the flow between downtown and the Embarcadero.
All right, thank you so much. We'll put those up where they belong on the board. So it looks like we have Whitney's ready to put them up for her team. Do you want to just briefly say what those cards are?
So the three topics that my table chose to concentrate on were water being number 1, jobs being number 2, and retail being number 3. In terms of water, there were lots of ideas, but they kind of boiled down to maximize and diversify sources and essentially maximize and diversify reuse. So we talked about everything from gray water to tertiary treatment to rainwater catchment. Enough, we've all talked a lot about water, but anyway, that's obviously a big topic. Jobs, lots of discussion on jobs. Lots of discussion about improving space and infrastructure availability. That covers a range of topics. Transportation support, sort of wireless gig economy support, actual space, especially for office type uses. And the other issue that came up in relation to jobs was to identify trends and understand how Morro Bay could accommodate some ongoing trends in jobs. Retail was our last topic of conversation. We didn't get too far into that, but one obvious thing that everyone seemed to agree on was to avoid the kind of dead zones where there's just a string of businesses that are closed or nothing's happening. That tends to preclude vibrant pedestrian activity. This is not a new thought, but there are certainly opportunities to try and minimize those areas where you might walk for a couple of blocks and not have anything open or of interest to you. And the other one was this kind of blends into some other things, jobs as well, but definitely kind of the sort of a more mixed use, considering maybe a higher building height, very focused in the downtown corridor, pretty much was most of our discussion on that area. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Looks like we have Lorelei up next. We'll just try to do a little bit quicker couple of final report backs so we can wrap up pretty soon.
Okay. Our highest scoring topic was water supply, and we had 5 votes for water supply. We had a wealth of knowledge about water supply at our table, so we had a colorful discussion about our options, desalination, a clever idea of charging visitors for the water that they use in hotels and restaurants, putting that back on that user who visits, harvesting rainwater from rooftops, and a kind of a catch-all, pun intended, diversifying sources of our water, including all of the above, desal, and conversion and reclamation. Our second topic with 4 votes was growth. We talked a little bit about more affordable housing, diversifying those to 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and actually focusing in the long term on less vacation rentals and VRBOs and Airbnbs, and making some of those units more just for the residents. And as far as growth, we chose the option at our table unanimously to plan for up to 12,200 and not beyond. And lastly, with 4 votes, was jobs. Okay to remain as more of a bedroom community. This was an interesting topic for us because we had a couple different schools of thought. So for jobs, we had a discussion about perhaps it's okay to remain as more of a bedroom community, but a larger kind of group at our table said, you know what, we'd really like to attract more businesses, but that conversation was diverse. Small businesses, in-home, great. Medium businesses, 30 to 40 employees, maybe larger tech industry too. So really diversifying. There was a lot kind of in that conversation, but we've captured it right here. Did I go too fast? Okay.
All right, Whitney's up, or Cindy's up next.
Thank you. So I will try to go quick as well. Our highest vote getter was retail, and I'm going to need some help knowing where this goes here. So for retail, I'll go over that first. Some of the themes that we talked about that was, a big thing was recruiting local businesses and no chain stores, definitely, and especially in the downtown area, to maintain that unique downtown feel. And then the third theme was making the process easier, local families, and then the related effect of encouraging affordable housing so that as we're focusing on businesses and bringing businesses to town, that the people who work for those businesses have places to live, so that they can afford. The second item was water. And so we talked about primarily water independence, eliminating our dependence on state water. Talked for a while about capturing gray water, white water, also municipal rainwater reclamation, and reclaiming wastewater for reuse. And then also providing our options for drought-tolerant landscaping. And then our third vote was a tie. We didn't get to talk about it, but it was transportation and jobs, and I just wanted to point that out. And I'll turn it over to the next person. Is that too fast? Good?
All right, I'll be quick. Our top vote getter was water supply, and second was retail. We didn't really get too far on retail, so this should really be quick then. So on water supply was to continue to increase education and promotion of conservation programs, really focusing on the changing behaviors of folks, how it relates to water conservation. And developing and continue to develop diversified water supply, including looking at our wells, desalination, again, continued conservation, recycling, and rainwater. And then to look at the update of the building code to include requirements for implementation of gray water systems in new housing. And that's what we got for water.
Wonderful. What a great room full of ideas. All right, so we are ready to wrap up, but we are going to formally close out the meeting with a comment period that Dr. Teft will facilitate in a moment. So I just wanted to thank you all for coming and for giving us all of your great input and ideas and feedback. We would really love for you all to stay involved. And the next opportunity to participate is the July GPAC meeting, which is going to be here from 4 to 7 p.m. You're welcome to come and listen in and provide comments. And at that time, they'll be reviewing the background report that we've been working on that you got a little glimpse of with some of these facts. So that's going to be a more detailed, deep dive into that content. You can also go online to the website that's listed down here and find opportunities to participate in the future, check back frequently, or sign up to be on the mailing list. If you didn't provide your email address at the beginning, some of you wrote your address, which is fine, but we'll be probably notifying you via email. So if you want to be notified, please write down your email address on your way out on the sign-in sheet. And you can also sign up for notifications on the website, on the city's website. So now we're going to take public comments. And just finally, please don't forget to participate in the vision board at the back and the downtown postcard activity, writing yourself a postcard from the future. Tell us what you want downtown to look like. And thank you so much again for coming. And stick around if you want to hear or make public comments. Otherwise, you're welcome to take off. We know it's 8 o'clock. We kept you just past 8, so... But here we go. Here's Dr. Teft to close out the evening. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a time set aside for public comment. You don't need to confine yourself to things that were discussed tonight. If anybody has anything else they'd like to say, please come up here. I'll give you the microphone, and we'd love to hear from you.
All right, I'm Sean Green. I'm from Morro Bay, and I just wanted to point out something that just barely missed the cut in a couple of our votes, but it was mentioned every time, was the possibility of one-way traffic on Embarcadero, possibly a loop with Beach and Main Street down to either Marina or Pacific, and widening the sidewalks, and possibly eliminating parking on the west side of Embarcadero.
One-way traffic in Embarcadero to Beach.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'd like to just thank all of you for coming out. You can't believe how helpful this is to the GPAC, honestly. So please keep involved and continue to let us hear from you. So, and with that, we will adjourn the GPAC meeting for this evening.